thanks everybody again. I have a few people I'm going to call up to the front who were part of the team who helped us in the field, and there are a handful of other things I wanted to share real briefly about it. So Michael Eisner, Michael connected me to James many years ago, and this whole project would not have happened had that connection not been made, so thank you, Michael, again. Slav, next to him, Slav is the Icelandic field system. The 800,000 year chart. Sherry, come on up, and Paula. These are the two producers on the film. Jerry and Paula. And lastly, James Balog. We did have a Q&A yesterday as well, so we kind of got a sense of some of the questions from the audience. And a lot of them were about climate change and policy and things like that. But we'd like to request out there that we kind of have a balance of those questions and questions about the filmmaking as well. And I guess behind the scenes, if there's interest about that. But before we start, James, if you wanted to speak a couple minutes, anything you want to share.
Anybody ever hear something called the Declaration of Independence? Yeah, okay. You know that little line in there about an inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? I think what we should be adding is that we have a right to clean air and a stable climate. And it's outrageous, really, and scandalous when you think about it, that the air that we all share, all 300 million plus people in the United States, all 7 billion people in the world, is used as a garbage dump. That's basically what we do. We've got tens of thousands of years of technological history going all the way back to the beginning of fire, where we just thought, well, we've got to use something to keep ourselves warm, like the world. And there's this sort of vacuum right up over our heads, and you know, whatever happens up there doesn't matter. Well, we're realizing that it does matter a lot. And this is a universal problem. It doesn't belong to Democrats or Republicans. It doesn't belong to one religion or another. This is a universal issue. We are all in this together. I made pollution getting here today. I was in a car. Okay? We have to figure out better ways to move ourselves, to light our world, to keep our world warm, to grow food. It's just the way it has to be. These carbon fuels used to be our best friend, and they aren't any longer. That's what we're learning in the current generation, the current decade. It's not the current generation exactly. It's happening very, very quickly. So it's time, unmistakably, for new strategies, for new ways of thinking. And what we want to do with this film is help introduce you to new ways of thinking about the world. Perception matters. We don't have a problem with economics. We have enough economic solutions. We don't have a problem with technology. We have enough technological solutions. We don't even really have a problem with government policy, because it's known how you would jigger government policies to make this situation get better. Where we have the problem is with perception. There are powerful forces in this society who are trying to inhibit perception, and there are powerful forces inside the basic wiring of the human mind that are trying to inhibit perception. But we believe that by bringing this story out to the world in a clearer, more potent, more visceral and emotional fashion that combines art and science, the rational and the intuitive, that we can penetrate the human psyche in a way that it hasn't been penetrated before. That would be the best summary of this project I've ever did.
So if there are any questions, we'd love to open it up. Yes, right here.
Who did the filming and how did you get find out it?
Well, my friend Michael right here, he connected. The question was, who did the filming and how did I get associated with the project? I did the cinematography and Michael introduced me to James several years ago, right before the project was getting started, and I had a background in photography, and I just wanted to work with him and be near him and do anything I could to assist him in any way. And as the project started, I just joined him on the first trip to Iceland, donated my time just to be there. Michael convinced James to take me, which, thank you. And then we went to Iceland, we went to Greenland, we went to Alaska, and we just kind of kept following. I just kept following James everywhere he went. And we kept shooting everything, and we didn't have a real plan for what was going to become of the footage at the beginning, but that evolved over time as we were getting more and more imagery back from the time-lapse cameras, and they started revealing some change in the glaciers. That's when we decided that we were going to make a full feature documentary. Yes?
Jim, I wanted to thank you for joining the Environmental Humanities Program, University of Utah, last semester. Thank you for joining us, and thank you. But I also wanted to say, you've been presenting this to politicians and policymakers, and I'm curious about their reaction. What are they saying after they see this?
Yeah, I've been really gratified that this thing has gotten so much momentum. I actually spend the majority of my time doing public education and outreach. You know, the field work was all-consuming those first couple of years, but we started getting pictures back that said something and meant something much, much quicker than we imagined. And so we kind of, I kept doing field work, but I was putting more and more and more of my time into the education and outreach. And it's been incredibly gratifying to see audiences, whether they're politicians or just general audiences, be really moved by this. And I've given, I think, 3 presentations to various parts of Congress. I've been in front of a number of the national regulatory bodies. I gave a presentation in President Obama's Office of Energy and Climate Change. I mean, literally just right next door to the White House. You could underhand a softball across the gate and you would hit the West Wing. And in all cases, people are like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. You know, we see all the white papers, we see all the graphs, we read all the research, but we didn't understand really what was going on. You know, it's just not as tangible when you read those papers and look at the graphs as it is when you see the pictures. And over again in audiences, I've had people come up to me saying, hey, you know, I was a skeptic about all this stuff. I really didn't believe that this was real. That guy Richard Ward, who was in the film, who was with Shell Oil, but also the guy who used to be the head of exploration for Texaco, came up to me afterwards and said, I get it now, and I really didn't understand it before. So truly the pictures and the storytelling have incredible potency for, you know, bringing this out of the realm of abstraction and making it real. And there's climate change stories happening all around us right now. We happen to pick the one for the moment where you can see it the most, but we're already working on climate change stories that are happening down in these latitudes, and there's a lot of them. And the trick is to figure out a way to look at those stories and tell those stories.
Over here.
So, melted glaciers, you made something bad look so amazingly beautiful. Will your next documentary be about chasing water?
The question was, we made the melting glaciers look beautiful. Will our next documentary be about chasing water? Maybe so. Could be about chasing air also. Thinking about that a lot. And I've learned really since I was working on endangered wildlife, whenever that was, 25 years ago, that the secret sauce to all of this, and I'll tell all 500 of my new best friends here in the room what the secret is you're looking at an issue that's potentially really ugly and really hard to look at. And you have to keep taxing your brain and taxing your research and your understanding and keep talking to people and trying to learn to find a way around something that might be horrific and bring beauty into it and make it seductive, as I said quite early in the film. I mean, even looking at animals getting killed, it was too harsh, it was too direct. But when you kind of go back around a different visual circuit, you find something that tells the story, but it tells it in a beautiful way. And then you put the beauty out front, and then in behind is the backstory. You deliver the horror or the upset of it, and so you seduce somebody into looking at it. And if you had just gone straight into the horror, they maybe didn't want to look at it. So that's the trick. And I'm actively trolling on an hourly basis for ways to tackle some of the stories that I want to work on down here.
To add to that too, we spent about 2.5 years editing the film, and that process felt like we already were chasing water at some points. It was taking that long to edit the film. It's kind of an inside joke that we were using. Over there in the corner?
Yeah, I was wondering, is there anyone that's watching the glaciers in the Southern Hemisphere offshore?
Anybody watching Southern Hemisphere glaciers? No, we've got a very, I really wanted to do that. We have been doing repeat photography in the Andes of Bolivia. We just go down there every year or 2 or 3 and have somebody shoot at one of these sites that I worked on in 2006. And by the way, when I got there in 2006 in this site in Bolivia, outside La Paz, at 18,000 feet, this glacier had been the world's highest ski area. When I got there in 06, the glacier was almost entirely gone. It had disappeared in the previous 60 years. And between 2006 and 2009, the last vestiges of that glacier disappeared. We did a sequential series of that glacier literally vanishing. There's bedrock there now. But just as of the past month or so, we've gotten an opportunity to do a major camera deployment down in the Andes. The Andes, those glaciers are thinning out about a yard, about 3 feet worth of vertical distance every year. And it doesn't take long for a 100-foot thick or 200-foot thick glacier to disappear when you're losing that much. So we're very eager to work in Chile and Argentina and Peru and document that situation down there. But all these things take time and money, and this is expensive to do. And we were so far out beyond the realm of what photographic funding sources supply in this world. So to do what we did, to me, feels like climbing Mount Everest in wintertime, because you don't do this in photography. So with more financial resources available, yeah, we'll do more sites for sure. And we're trying to keep our existing sites going, which is a serious financial challenge as well.
I do believe that there is, I've seen the time lapse of a glacier in Patagonia, and that was done more recently, but I haven't been connected to that scientist who was working on that.